It started with a shadow, a blurry figure seen only for a moment. Rain splattered the security lens. The wind howled through the empty courtyard. But at precisely 3:17 a.m., a royal guard on night duty spotted something that made his heart stop. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. A man. Alone. No driver. No announcement. No security detail. Just there. And then, gone. But this wasn't just any man. No. According to the guard, who later resigned and signed an unusually strict non-disclosure agreement, it was someone who wasn't supposed to be anywhere near Buckingham Palace. Not anymore. So, who walked into the East Gate under the cover of darkness? Who triggered a palace-wide blackout of internal security footage? And why did Prince William receive a coded message just minutes later, waking him from bed? Could it really have been Prince Harry? And if so, why now? Because if the whispers are true, if this was Prince Harry, then this is the story of the most secretive royal homecoming in decades. A story of power plays, betrayal, forbidden doors, and fury half a world away. A story with ripple effects already shaking the monarchy to its core. And Meghan? Oh, she's furious. Let's rewind. Because to understand the shock of what just happened, we have to go back. Not to 2020. Not to the Oprah interview. Not even to Megxit. We need to go back to the quiet unease that settled over the palace halls just days before the king's most recent hospitalization. It was subtle at first. A maid reported that her usual corridor had been mysteriously closed for deep cleaning, despite no official maintenance on the books. The palace chef noticed a drastic shift in the late-night food orders. 3 servings of vegetable soup, no salt, extra hot. The same order that had once been associated with Harry's late-night habits, way back when he lived there. Coincidence? Maybe. But when the East Wing motion detectors recorded movement at 2:43 a.m. 3 nights in a row, with no staff assigned to that section, things started to get eerie. And then, the guard saw him. No badge. No introduction. No sound. Just the flick of a hood, the unmistakable shape of a tall man walking like he'd been there 1,000 times. Because he had. And that's where the story should have ended. A minor breach, maybe. A royal staffer's look-alike. An optical illusion brought on by sleep deprivation. But then something strange happened. At 9:07 a.m., just hours after the mystery figure vanished into the palace, Prince William made an unexpected call. Not to his father, not to security, but to his private secretary, and only said 5 words. Is the tunnel still open? The tunnel. Only a handful of people in the world even know about it. A relic of World War II, buried beneath Buckingham Palace, stretching toward Clarence House. Sealed after the Cold War. Forgotten, except by a few royals who used it as children to escape watchful eyes. Why would William ask that? Unless he believed someone might be in it? Unless he already knew who was? So let's ask the question again. Was Prince Harry secretly inside Buckingham Palace this week? And if so, why did nobody tell Meghan? Because just as this mysterious appearance was unfolding in London, something was unraveling across the ocean. Reports began circulating in Los Angeles that Meghan Markle had stormed out of a late-night dinner meeting, her phone in hand, face red, visibly shaken. Witnesses say she kept repeating the same phrase. No, he wouldn't. Not without me. One source claims she called a high-level Netflix executive an hour later and canceled a scheduled production meeting. Another insider says she left voice messages for Tyler Perry, sounding urgent and erratic. And according to a leaked text thread between 2 of her stylists, Meghan was blindsided. So what does that tell us? It tells us that whatever Prince Harry was doing, he did it alone, without her knowledge, without her consent. And that's where things start to get dangerous. Because the Sussex brand is built on the partnership, the unity, the defiance, together. So what happens when one breaks that pact? What happens when the prodigal son dares to return home, but leaves his partner behind? Is it an act of rebellion? Or betrayal? You tell me. Now here's where things get wild. The Daily Mirror briefly published, and then deleted, a photo early this morning. It showed a long-range image of a man in a gray hoodie walking through Green Park at 4:12 a.m. The caption simply read, "Unconfirmed royal sighting?" Stay tuned. Within 10 minutes, the post vanished. Accounts that reposted the image were suspended. Royal reporters refused to comment. And yet, One brave paparazzo sent an anonymous message to a journalist on X, formerly Twitter, claiming the original image had been tagged with metadata linking it to St. James's Park surveillance cam number 7, a camera that, surprise, surprise, was disabled during the time of the sighting. Coincidence? Again? Let's stack the evidence. Motion detectors in the palace picked up unassigned movement. A royal guard claims he saw Harry. Prince William asked about the underground tunnel. Meghan is visibly distressed and scrambling. A photo briefly surfaces and is scrubbed. And now, all of this is happening while King Charles is battling a rumored health flare-up behind the scenes. So again, the question must be asked. What is Prince Harry doing in London? Unannounced, unaccompanied, and possibly unwelcome. To get to that answer, we need to follow the breadcrumbs. Because there's something else that happened. Something that hasn't hit the tabloids yet. Something insiders are whispering about in WhatsApp groups and encrypted chats. It involves a letter, not an email, not a press release. An old-school, hand-delivered, wax-sealed envelope, sent from Clarence House to a private flat near Notting Hill just days before the sighting. The envelope was addressed only with one word: Sparrow. Now, for those in the know, that was Diana's nickname for Harry. It's never been public. It's never been merchandised. But it was real. A name she used in notes, birthday cards, and secret bedtime messages. So if someone is using Sparrow as a code name, it means they know something intimate. Something only a royal would know. Theories are flying. Was it Charles, sending a desperate final message to his youngest son? Was it William, breaking protocol for one last reconciliation? Or was it someone else entirely? A royal aide acting off script? Whatever the answer, one thing is clear. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a random visit. This was a mission, and Meghan wasn't part of it. So now we have the setup. We have the questions. We have the panic in Los Angeles, the silence in the palace, the digital erasures, and the telltale signs of a cover-up unfolding in real time. But here's where it really gets chilling. A palace cleaner, one of the few staff members working night shifts this week, told a friend that she felt someone walk past her in the Queen's former suite. When she turned around, there was no one there. But the door was slightly open, and the Queen's portrait on the wall, it was crooked, not just bumped, not just leaning. It looked like someone had taken it down and then carefully put it back up. Why? What was behind it? And more importantly, who was behind it? Because hours later, that cleaner was replaced, and she hasn't been seen at work since. So this is where we begin. A stormy night, a shadow in the dark, a furious wife 5,000 miles away, and a palace preparing for something big, something the world isn't supposed to know yet. Because if Harry is back, if he's truly returned, then the entire House of Windsor is about to be tested like never before. And what comes next? Well, what comes next will shake every crown, every vow, and every carefully built lie that's kept this family together since Diana's death. Because the moment Harry stepped inside that palace, the past came alive, and it's not going quietly. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. Why would 3 royal security officers resign on the same morning and sign NDAs that even their own families weren't allowed to read? It was supposed to be a routine overnight. Nothing special, nothing royal scheduled, just the usual silence that blankets Buckingham Palace between midnight and dawn. But this particular night, soaked in freezing rain and wrapped in eerie stillness, would become the final shift for one man who had seen too much. His name was not supposed to be known, and yet, insiders whispered it anyway. Corporal Darren Bishop. Loyal, quiet, veteran of 2 tours in Afghanistan, decorated for bravery, transferred to palace duty in 2020 for stability and prestige. He never expected his final patrol would end with him staring face-to-face with a man who had been erased from palace protocol. A man he hadn't seen in 3 years. A man with royal blood and a face of steel. Prince Harry. Corporal Bishop's shift began at 10 p.m. sharp, stationed at the East Gate, a position considered both cushy and cursed. Rarely used since the early 2000s, it offered little action but a clear view of Green Park and one access point very few remembered. At 3:12 a.m., Bishop noted an oddity in his log. A black SUV parked near the east gravel path. No license plate lights. Engine off. He was about to radio it in when his line died. Not just jammed. Cut. That's not normal. Even during drills or royal evacuations, protocol demands a signal backup. But here, nothing. Just dead static. He moved cautiously, approached the perimeter. That's when the figure emerged, slowly, deliberately, like he wanted to be seen. A gray hoodie, black jeans, no security badge, no lanyard, no entourage. And yet, he walked past the eastern hedges with the confidence of a man who knew the palace better than its own staff. Bishop froze. But when the figure raised his head, just briefly, the flickering light caught his face. And Darren's training gave way to instinct. He recognized the jawline, the eyes, the scar just above the eyebrow. It was him. But how? Why? And more importantly, under whose authority? The figure didn't speak. He didn't need to. With a single glance, he seemed to dare Darren to stop him. But how do you stop a royal when the entire system is built to serve them? Darren hesitated, then stepped back. The figure passed by him in silence and slipped through a side door, one previously sealed to all but maintenance staff. It opened with a soft click. He was expected, and that's when Darren knew this was no mistake. Someone inside wanted Harry back and had cleared the path. At 3:28 a.m., the secondary gate camera froze. Not glitched, looped. A 2-minute sequence repeated for nearly 45 minutes. Only one person on site had the access level to initiate that override. Shift Supervisor Helen Martle, who resigned 3 hours later with no explanation. She refused to answer calls from media, moved out of London the next day. The only statement she gave, "I saw what I saw, and that's enough." But it didn't stop there. 2 more guards from that shift, Sergeant James Linton and Officer Adrian Wells, also vanished from the royal security roster within 72 hours. All 3 signed NDAs with unprecedented legal clauses, allegedly threatening them with imprisonment if even their spouses were told the truth. Why? What did they see? And who orchestrated the cover-up? Let's pause for a second. Why would 3 highly trained officers, 2 decorated veterans, 1 a 10-year palace veteran, walk away from their careers overnight? Unless someone had returned who was not supposed to. Unless the system that banished him was now allowing him back in. Or worse, being bypassed entirely. The official palace logbook from that night shows no visitor entry, no guest clearance, no security override, no acknowledgement. It's as if that entire shift, those crucial 2 hours between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., simply didn't exist. When journalists filed Freedom of Information requests for security footage from that night, they received vague responses. Footage unrecoverable due to technical malfunction. System undergoing maintenance during reported time window. Really? Since when does Buckingham Palace allow its security systems to go down at night with no backups? Unless that's exactly what someone wanted. There's another detail that rarely gets reported. Darren Bishop's brother, an IT technician who once assisted with palace encryption upgrades, told a friend something unsettling. That Darren came home the morning of his resignation, visibly shaken. He didn't speak for nearly 2 hours. Just sat at the edge of the bed, staring at nothing. When pressed, all he said was, "It wasn't just that he came back. It's how they let him." And that last line, it's haunted royal watchers ever since. Because they let him implies complicity, permission, plan. So who is they? Was it King Charles? Unlikely. His schedule shows he was undergoing treatment the very next day. Was it Prince William? More plausible, especially given the tunnel question. Or was it someone else? Someone still lurking in the palace. Someone with power and loyalty to a past that's been buried? You might be wondering, why all this secrecy? If Harry came to visit, why not just announce it? Why not issue a statement? Leak it to the press like they always do? The answer, it seems, lies in who wasn't told. Meghan. Because if she wasn't informed, and she clearly wasn't, then this wasn't a Sussex visit. This was Harry, solo. Prince, son, brother. Not husband. Not brand. And that changes everything. Because it means he wasn't acting as part of Team Sussex. He was acting on his own. And if there's one thing the firm fears, it's a rogue royal on a personal mission. Let's dig deeper. After his resignation, Darren Bishop moved out of London to a remote part of Scotland. A village with less than 1,000 people. Why? Safety? Or silence? He deleted all social media. Changed his phone number. Reportedly turned down a lucrative tell-all offer from a tabloid. But there's one thing he did do, something subtle. He left behind a parting gift in a veterans forum online. A comment posted under a pseudonym just days after he left. It read, "Sometimes the crown doesn't lie in the vault. Sometimes it walks in through the back gate, wearing its shame like a badge." Read that again. Wearing its shame like a badge. Is he referring to Harry? And if so, what shame? Is it the fallout from the Oprah interview? The Netflix deal? The book? Or is it deeper? Something personal? Something tied to a secret only a few guards, a tunnel, and a crooked portrait might ever understand? Now here's the real kicker. An unconfirmed palace source recently disclosed that a high-level internal investigation was launched after the incident, but never completed. Why? Because halfway through, the lead investigator was reassigned to a diplomatic posting in Canada. A soft exile? Possibly. But the move raised eyebrows, especially because the investigator had just compiled a list of names linked to access overrides. Names of people with the power to let someone like Harry in undetected. The list was destroyed. But a copy? Rumor has it, it still exists. And it's in the hands of someone who knows how to keep secrets and when to finally let them out. So what does all this mean? Why the cloak and dagger return? Why the radio silence? And why would a royal guard with 20-plus years of service throw it all away after one shift? What, exactly, did Darren Bishop see? We don't know the full truth. But we do know this. The moment Harry walked past that gate, everything changed. The silence became thunder. And Meghan? She had no idea. But she was about to find out. And when she did, all hell broke loose. What happens when the woman who controls the narrative realizes she's the last person to hear the truth? The call came in the middle of the night. Not London time. Los Angeles time. Which meant it wasn't a casual check-in. It wasn't a missed call you return in the morning. It was the kind of call that drags you out of sleep with your heart racing before you even answer. The kind that makes your stomach drop. Meghan Markle's phone lit up at 12:46 a.m. Unknown number. Blocked caller ID. She ignored it. 30 seconds later, again and again. By the fourth vibration, she sat upright in bed, hair tangled, breath shallow, already irritated. Because people don't call like that unless something is wrong, or unless they know you'll eventually pick up. She answered without saying a word. What followed, according to someone who later heard the voicemail replayed, was silence. Not dead air. Breathing. Controlled. Slow. Familiar. Then a voice. Low. British. Careful. Meghan. You need to know something. That was it. No greeting. No apology. No context. Just 5 words that detonated everything she thought she knew. Within minutes, her comm cracked. Sources close to the household say she stood up so fast the bedside lamp crashed to the floor. She paced. She swore. She demanded names. And then came the question she repeated over and over, louder each time. Who told him he could do that? Because in that moment, she didn't need confirmation. She already knew. Harry was in London, and no one had told her. Let's stop right here and ask the uncomfortable question. If this were an innocent visit, why hide it? Why not a text? A heads up? A courtesy call? Why would a husband cross an ocean, step inside the very palace he swore he'd never return to, and keep his wife in the dark? Unless he knew she'd stop him. Unless he knew she'd rage. Unless he knew this was something he had to do alone. Meghan's reaction wasn't confusion. It was fury. Witnesses say she stormed into the guest bathroom and slammed the door so hard the mirror rattled. She fired off messages, deleted them, rewrote them, threw the phone onto the bed, and then she did something telling. She didn't call Harry. Not once. Instead, she called everyone else. Her agent, her attorney, a former palace communications aide she'd sworn never to speak to again. And finally, Tyler Perry. The Tyler Perry call didn't go through. Straight to voicemail. She left a message anyway. Her voice, described by someone who later heard it, was sharp, clipped, controlled, but shaking underneath. Call me back. Now. This isn't a rumor. This is real. And if you knew, if anyone knew. The message cut off before she finished the sentence. She never finished it. Because she didn't need to. In Meghan's world, information is power. And someone had taken it from her. Now here's where things get strange. Within an hour of that call, Meghan canceled a closed-door meeting with a Netflix development executive. No explanation. Just a terse text. Family emergency. She then instructed her assistant to pull every upcoming appearance from her calendar. This wasn't damage control. This was containment. Because she knew, if Harry was back in the palace, this story wouldn't stay buried. Not with guards resigning, not with cameras glitching, not with royal insiders whispering, and definitely not with a monarchy already under pressure. According to one source close to her inner circle, Meghan paced the living room muttering the same phrase. He promised me. He promised me. Promised what? That he'd never go back? That he'd never meet them without her? That he'd never be pulled back into the gravitational pull of the crown? We don't know. But we do know this. Whatever promise was made, it had just been broken. And then came the text. Not from Harry. From someone else. Someone Meghan hadn't heard from in years. A former royal aide. One who'd quietly disappeared after the Sussexes left the UK. The message was short. Neutral. Devastating. He didn't want you involved. That was it. No explanation. No justification. Just confirmation of the worst fear Meghan had always harbored but never admitted out loud. That when it came down to it, Harry still had one foot inside that world. And she wasn't part of it. Let's talk psychology for a moment. Meghan is not impulsive. She's strategic. Calculated. Media savvy to a fault. When she explodes, it's usually with purpose. But this time, those close to her say she looked genuinely blindsided. This wasn't a press leak she could spin. This wasn't a narrative she could control. This was her husband acting independently, inside the palace, of all places, without looping her in. That's not just a marital issue. That's an existential threat to the Sussex identity. And then, she did something unexpected. She didn't go public. No Instagram post. No cryptic quote. No planted tabloid story. Nothing. Total silence. Why? Because she was waiting. Waiting to see what Harry would do next. Waiting to see if he'd call. Waiting to see if this was a visit or a return. At 2:03 a.m., her phone rang again. Different number. Private line. She answered instantly. This time, it was Harry. But he didn't speak first. She did. Tell me you didn't. Silence. And in that silence, she got her answer. He didn't deny it. He didn't apologize. He didn't explain. He just said one sentence that reportedly changed everything between them. I needed to see it for myself. See what? The palace? His father? His past? Or something else entirely? Something hidden? Something he'd been summoned back for? Witnesses say Meghan laughed after he said it. Not humor. Not joy. A sharp, brittle laugh that signals disbelief tipping into rage. You went back, she said. After everything. After what we built. According to the same source, Harry replied quietly. I didn't go back for them. Pause. I went back for me. That was the line. The moment. The fracture. Because in Meghan's world, there is no me outside the we. And Harry had just drawn a line she couldn't cross. The call ended abruptly. No goodbye. No resolution. Just dead air. And when it ended, Meghan did something that surprised even her closest allies. She sat down and cried. Not publicly. Not performatively. Privately. Because for the first time since Megxit, she wasn't in control. Harry was. But the night wasn't over. At 3:41 a.m., Meghan's attorney received an email marked urgent. Attached was a single still image. Blurry. Grainy. But unmistakable. A man standing in a palace corridor. Back turned. Red hair visible under the hood. And on the wall beside him, a portrait of Princess Diana. The timestamp, 3:18 a.m. Less than 5 minutes after Darren Bishop saw him pass through the gate. Meghan stared at the image for a long time. Then she said something chilling. If that photo leaks, I end him. Not emotionally. Strategically. Because at that moment, Meghan Markle didn't just see a husband returning to his past. She saw a man slipping out of her narrative. And that was unforgivable. But what Meghan didn't know, what she couldn't possibly know yet, was that Harry hadn't just returned to the palace. He'd been invited. And the person who invited him was someone she never expected. But that revelation was still to come. And when it did, it would shift the blame and the power entirely. What if the palace didn't just let Harry back in, but called him home, with a message no one was supposed to see? Let's rewind to 5 days before the shadow at the East Gate. A courier arrived at a quiet townhouse in Notting Hill. No royal crest. No uniform. Just a man in plain clothes holding a black envelope with no return address. It was handed to the woman who opened the door with trembling hands. She wasn't a duchess. She wasn't a socialite. She was a former royal archivist, retired in silence after Queen Elizabeth's death, now living under the radar, her name forgotten by the public, but not by the palace. Her hands shook not because she was old, but because of what she recognized on the wax seal. Not Charles's insignia, not William's, but Diana's private cipher, a discreet symbol she used for personal correspondence, a tiny rosebud, engraved into a wax seal, long thought to be retired with her memory. And inside, a single, handwritten note. 12 words. The compass must return before the crown is buried. Sparrow will know. No signature. No date. No context. But that line, Sparrow will know, set off alarm bells. Because only one person was ever called Sparrow. Harry, Diana's secret name for him. And if someone was using that name now, in 2025, then someone inside the palace had revived a secret long believed to have died with her. So who sent the message? That's the question that turned whispers into a quiet war behind the palace walls. Royal insiders immediately suspected Princess Anne. Why? Because she's the only royal with both the access and the loyalty to the Queen Mother's secret communication archive. And more importantly, she's never trusted Meghan. Never. And was one of the first royals to privately warn Charles that Meghan was a PR hurricane waiting to happen. And she had always shared a quiet bond with Harry, one built not on coddling, but on raw honesty. So was and behind the message. Or was it Camilla? A twist, right? But Camilla has never been one to play overt games. She moves in silence, uses proxies, never puts her name on things. And Camilla's camp? Radio silent. Not a single denial. Not one word. Almost like they knew staying quiet would raise fewer flags than defending themselves. But then there's a third option, a name that shouldn't even be possible. William. Now stay with me. Because everything you think you know about the rift between William and Harry is based on public statements, ghost-written memoirs, and camera flashes. But beneath the surface, there were always cracks in that narrative. Despite the feuds, despite Spare, despite the press, William never burned the bridge. He iced it. He distanced himself, but he never blocked it completely. And in the days before Harry's mysterious reappearance, something happened that the press never reported. William missed a key royal engagement, a hospital ribbon-cutting scheduled 3 months in advance. One that couldn't be rescheduled without major PR blowback. The official excuse? A private family matter. Now, that sounds routine, but palace staff noticed something odd. The next day, William was seen leaving his private study holding an envelope identical to the one delivered in Notting Hill. Same black seal, same discreet courier. And that's not the end of it. That same courier was spotted the next morning, boarding a flight to Los Angeles. So let's put the puzzle pieces together. A mysterious letter appears with Diana's cipher. It references a compass and a sparrow. The palace courier delivers a second envelope abroad. Meghan gets blindsided. Harry shows up in the palace, alone. You see it, don't you? This wasn't a visit. It was a summons. But that begs the question. Why now? Why call Harry back now, after everything? The answer, according to one royal historian, lies in King Charles's private papers, the ones being prepared in secret for what insiders grimly call Operation Legacy. This operation, reportedly activated once Charles's health entered a critical window, includes private estate instructions, end-of-life wishes, and a sealed letter to each son. William's was hand-delivered weeks ago. Harry's? Never sent. Until now. Here's where it gets emotional. According to a palace aide, Charles's letter to Harry was rewritten at the last minute. Why? Because the king saw something in the news that shattered him. A video clip of Prince Archie playing with a plastic crown, asking, "Did Grandpa wear this?" That clip, innocent and sweet, circulated online. And Charles, watching alone at Balmoral, allegedly turned to his valet and said, "I don't want my grandson growing up thinking I was only ever a picture in a frame." 2 days later, the courier left London with the envelope. Destination, Montecito. But when he arrived, Harry was already gone. So who knew Harry would leave before the letter arrived? Who timed that delivery? Who orchestrated it so that Meghan would be left out of the loop? There's only one person with both the power and the motive. Princess Anne. She's the palace's iron spine, the keeper of old traditions. The one person left who still honors Diana's private legacy without exploiting it. And she was with Charles the night he signed the rewritten letter. She's the one who watched him seal it. And she's the one who, according to insiders, added one final item to the envelope. A compass. Diana's compass. Here's the backstory. When Harry was a child, Diana gave him a small silver compass before a trip abroad. It was engraved with the words, "When lost, follow your heart." After Diana's death, the compass vanished. Some say it was stolen. Others say it was buried with her. But last year, a former palace cleaner claimed she saw it in a velvet box on Charles's nightstand. If that's true, if Charles kept it all these years, and if he chose now to return it to Harry, then this wasn't just a royal formality. This was an emotional olive branch. A coded message from father to son. It's time to come home. So the courier leaves. The letter travels. But Harry is already en route. Because someone tipped him off. And if that someone wasn't Meghan, and it wasn't Charles directly, then it had to be an insider. A royal family. William? Possibly. But it doesn't quite fit. William's loyalty has always been to order, not emotion. But Anne? She's the wild card. She's not ruled by PR. She doesn't care about headlines. And she, above all, still respects Diana's memory. And if she saw Charles, sick and fading, grieving a son he'd exiled, she might have made a call of her own. Quiet. Direct. No palace channels. Just a whisper across the Atlantic. It's time. So now Harry returns. Not in fanfare. Not with cameras. Not with Meghan. Just the compass. The letter. The palace. And a question burning inside him. Who wants me back? And more importantly, who wants her gone? Because Meghan isn't just angry. She's suspicious. And when she finds out who orchestrated Harry's secret return, she won't just rage. She'll retaliate. And what she does next will send shockwaves from Hollywood to Windsor. What happens when a man returns to the place he once called home, knowing half the family doesn't want him there, and the other half may never forgive him? Prince Harry stood at the edge of the courtyard, the cold wind cutting through his coat like a blade. It had been 3 years since he last stepped foot on palace grounds, not as a tourist, not as a guest, but as a son, a Windsor. Now, he wasn't even sure what he was. A stranger? A traitor? A symbol of rebellion wrapped in scandal? Or simply a man following the pull of something he couldn't explain? Behind him, the east gate creaked shut. No guards challenged him. No dogs barked. The palace, usually alert, alive, pulsing with protocol, was eerily still, as if it was holding its breath, waiting. He walked slowly. Every step echoing on the slick stone walkway felt heavier than the last. Memories clung to the walls like ivy. His first Christmas with Diana, sneaking downstairs in pajamas. William's lectures on duty. Charles's distant voice behind closed doors. But this time, no one was waiting to welcome him. There was no reception line, no red carpet, no hand extended in peace. Just silence. And that damn portrait. He paused under the shadow of Queen Victoria's gaze, hung high in the vestibule. Her painted eyes cold, unreadable, regal. He used to joke with Kate that it looked like the painting judged him for breathing too loudly. Tonight, it just watched, unblinking. As Harry moved through the East Wing corridor, he stopped outside a particular door. The Queen's private chamber. Now sealed, preserved, untouched since her passing. No one used it. No one dared to. Except tonight, the door was ajar. And inside, the faint scent of lavender and aged wood still lingered. Harry stepped in. No fanfare. No ceremony. Just one man walking into his grandmother's sanctuary. On the desk sat a single object. A jewelry box. Not locked. Not guarded. Just waiting. He opened it slowly. Inside, folded into blue velvet, was a photo. Him, as a child, on Diana's lap. His face smudged with cake. Her arms around him, holding him like the world could never touch him. He stared at it for a long time, then tucked it into his coat pocket. He didn't know who placed it there, but they knew he'd come. They wanted him to see it. And then he heard it. Footsteps. Not heavy. Measured. Soft. Someone else was in the palace. Not a servant. Not a tourist. Someone who moved like they belonged. He stepped back into the hallway, heart racing. And as he turned the corner, he saw a light, flickering under a door. The library. A room Harry hadn't entered since his wedding announcement, when the press snapped pictures of the modern prince and his American duchess surrounded by dusty volumes of royal history. That same room now called to him. He walked slowly, hand on the doorknob, paused, and opened it. Inside was a fire, crackling, freshly lit. And sitting beside it was someone he didn't expect. Not Charles. Not Anne. Not even William. But an elderly man in a dark suit, eyes sunken, face drawn with years of loyalty and secrets. The man stood and bowed, not as a subject, but as a witness. "Your Highness," he said softly, "I was told you'd come." Harry stared, confused. "Who told you?" The man smiled faintly. "Your mother." Let's pause. That sounds insane. Impossible. A ghost? A game? A manipulation? But here's the thing. This man, Reginald Aylesworth, was the Queen's personal archivist for nearly 5 decades. He handled private letters, family journals, secret correspondences between monarchs and governments alike. And he was the last person alive who had physically cataloged Princess Diana's handwritten letters. He wasn't claiming Diana called him. He was saying she prepared for this. Years ago, Reginald reached into his briefcase and pulled out a sealed envelope. The same wax rose seal. The same discreet parchment. He held it out. "I've been instructed to deliver this to you upon your return." Harry took it, fingers trembling. He didn't open it immediately. He just held it, like it might vanish. Like opening it might rip something open inside him he wasn't ready to face. But he knew. This was the reason he'd come back. Not the crown. Not the family. Not even Charles. Her. He opened the letter and read. "We won't pretend to know what it said. We only know what happened next." Harry sat down. Shoulders dropped. He wept. Not loudly. Not performatively. Silently. Like a boy who had finally received the message he'd been waiting for his entire life. And Reginald? He didn't interrupt. He just stepped outside the room and locked the door behind him. Now here's where things take a turn. Because at that exact moment, across the palace, a second door opened. Prince William, alerted not by staff, not by schedule, but by a silent signal. A candle lit in the southern corridor window. A candle only Harry and William ever used growing up to signal secret midnight meetings. Their code. Their pact. A flicker of childhood loyalty in a house built on silence. William saw the flame and knew. Harry was back. He didn't tell Kate. He didn't tell Charles. He just grabbed a coat and headed for the corridor. But as he moved toward the library, he heard a sound that made him stop. Laughter. Faint. Muffled. But familiar. Not mocking. Not cruel. Just warm. Real. It was Harry, laughing at something in the letter. And for a split second, William smiled. Before the bitterness returned. He stood at the door. Debated knocking. Debated leaving. Then finally, he knocked once. Firm. Harry looked up and said just one word. Will. No titles. No formalities. Just Will. The door opened. And for the first time in years, they were in the same room. No cameras. No scripts. No Meghan. No Kate. Just 2 brothers. A fire. A letter. And decades of silence. They didn't speak right away. They didn't need to. Because what Harry had just read was going to change everything. But what William brought with him was even more explosive. And once Harry saw what was in William's hand, everything they thought they knew about Diana's death, and who truly pulled the strings, would unravel. She never said a word. But with one subtle gesture, Kate Middleton sent a message to Harry that Meghan couldn't ignore. And it reopened a wound that never truly healed. It was a photograph. Nothing scandalous. Nothing shocking on the surface. Just a casual snap of the Princess of Wales stepping out of her car outside a children's hospice in Norwich. The press caption called it a routine appearance, smiling, waving warm. But royal watchers spotted something else. On her wrist, barely visible under the cuff of her tailored coat, was a bracelet. Delicate. Silver. Engraved with small, indistinct etchings. To most people, it was a pretty piece of jewelry. But to those who followed the Windsors for years, it was unmistakable. It was Diana's bracelet. And it hadn't been seen in public since 2013. Let's talk about that bracelet. Diana wore it constantly during her later years. Thin and unassuming, but deeply personal. Insiders say it was a gift from a close friend after her divorce, meant to remind her of strength, freedom, and family. After Diana's death, the bracelet went to the royal vault. Its appearance on Kate's wrist now? Not random, not accidental. A signal. To Harry. Why now? Why wear it the same week Harry reportedly returned to the palace under a cloud of secrecy? Why wear it so publicly, so visibly, knowing the press would photograph every inch of her? The answer lies in a quiet conversation Kate had 2 weeks earlier, on the balcony of Kensington Palace, with someone who, until now, had stayed far from the spotlight. Lady Sarah McCorquodale, Diana's sister. They met over tea. No aides, no stylists, no press, just two women connected by one woman's ghost. And what Sarah said during that meeting left Kate shaken. According to a source close to the palace, Lady Sarah showed Kate something from her personal archive, a letter Diana had written in 1995, months before her BBC Panorama interview. In it, Diana had written, "The boys will need each other more than they know, and if one loses the path, the other must leave breadcrumbs." Kate reportedly read that line 3 times, then asked a simple question. "Do you think Harry's lost?" Sarah's reply, "I think he's waiting for someone to remind him he belongs." Fast forward to the hospice event. Kate arrives alone. No entourage, no distraction. She steps out, waves, smiles, and pulls her coat sleeve back just slightly. Enough to show the bracelet. Enough to send a message. To the cameras. To the press. To Harry. "I remember her too." And Harry noticed. From the moment the photos hit the internet, he stared at them longer than he wanted to admit. The bracelet wasn't just jewelry. It was a memory. He remembered the first time he saw it, sitting on Diana's wrist while she braided his hair before bed in Balmoral. She told him it was her armor, small, quiet, but powerful. Seeing it now on Kate, it hit him like a punch to the gut, because it didn't feel like nostalgia. It felt like a call. But Meghan? She saw something else entirely. To her, it was provocation. Calculated. Manipulative. A way for Kate to insert herself into the moment, into Harry's return, without ever saying a word. And when Meghan saw Harry looking at the photos, she snapped. According to a staff member, Meghan confronted Harry in their Montecito kitchen. "Don't tell me you think that means anything," she said. Harry didn't answer. He didn't need to. The silence spoke volumes. Because deep down, Meghan knew what she feared most was becoming real. Harry still cared, not just about his family, but about the symbols, the rituals, the quiet codes of the crown. And Kate? She knew exactly how to use those codes. Let's take a detour. Do you remember the 2011 wedding? Of course you do. But what most people don't know is that Kate had Harry's speech framed. The part where he welcomed her into the family and said, "You're the sister I never had." She kept it in a drawer for years. Why? Because she believed in that connection. Until it shattered. And now, years later, she was using a silent message, Diana's bracelet, to reach the brother-in-law who had disappeared into a storm of headlines and lawsuits. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a breadcrumb. Now back to London. Inside the palace, word of the bracelet's reappearance spread fast. Lady Susan, a retired dresser for the late Queen, reportedly whispered to a junior aide, "She's drawing a line in the sand. Either he follows, or he doesn't." And Harry? He followed. Later that evening, he returned to the Queen's private chamber alone. He opened the same velvet box where the photo had been. Inside, now sat a note. Short, handwritten, no signature, but unmistakably Kate's handwriting. "She never stopped loving you. Neither did I." Harry sat down and cried. Again. But Meghan? She wasn't done. Because now, she saw the narrative slipping. She saw Kate reclaiming the role of royal anchor. The unspoken heart of the family, the one the public adored, the one the firm trusted. And Meghan? She was on the outside. Again. And that's when she made her move. The next morning, her team contacted a tabloid journalist in Los Angeles, one who had once published a glowing piece on her wedding gown. This time, the pitch was different. Explosive. Private. Allegedly involving Kate, a message chain, and something Meghan had saved from 2019. A screenshot. But before the story could run, a royal insider intervened. A high-level cease and desist was filed. And the journalist? Silenced. Because what Meghan tried to leak was too dangerous, too revealing, too connected to what came next. Because Harry wasn't the only one receiving messages. Kate was about to receive something of her own. A package. No return address. Inside, a duplicate of Diana's bracelet. And a note that read, "One is real. The other is revenge. Choose wisely." No name. No signature. Just a line of fire between two women with everything to lose. And only one path to redemption. But what Kate did next would throw the palace into chaos and force Harry to choose between his mother's memory and his wife's wrath. What if the final instructions from Diana didn't die with her, because someone made sure they were passed on and kept in the one place no one thought to look. The king was sleeping, or trying to, even surrounded by luxury, even with every medical monitor calibrated to protect the monarch's fading health. Charles couldn't find rest. Not since the letter. Not since Harry returned. Not since everything started unraveling again. He lay in the dim light of Clarence's house, the same room where he first broke down when Diana died, now a half-museum to the past. The books on the shelf were untouched. The clock on the mantel ticked like a slow drumbeat, counting down to something inevitable. But the letter under his pillow? That wasn't from a doctor or a biographer. It was from someone who had been gone for 28 years. And yet, her presence had never felt more alive. Princess Diana. Let's go back. 10 days before Harry's shadow was spotted in the East Gate, a staff member in Clarence's house discovered something strange while preparing the king's private quarters for the night. A small blue envelope, tucked beneath the corner of the mattress, resting just under the pillow. No royal seal. No date. No official markings. Just one word, handwritten in ink that had faded with time. If. No one dared touch it. Not even the senior valet. They called in the only person Charles trusted with Diana's old archives, Lady Farnsworth, the royal documentarian who once worked alongside Diana's press secretary. When she saw the envelope, she gasped, because she recognized the penmanship immediately. "It's hers," she whispered. "This is her hand." And the moment she said it, Charles ordered everyone out of the room. According to palace insiders, the king read the letter alone. Twice. Once silently. Once aloud. What did it say? No one knows for certain, but sources close to him described his reaction as devastated. Not angry. Not confused. Crushed. He didn't speak for nearly 2 hours after. He just sat in the chair beside the bed, gripping the letter like it might evaporate if he let go. Why was the letter hidden? Why under the pillow, of all places? That's where things get complicated. Because this wasn't the first time Charles had received a message from the past. Apparently, Diana wrote several letters in the last year of her life, all sealed and stored with a trusted archivist. They were meant to be released at specific moments in the lives of her sons and her ex-husband. But this letter? This wasn't meant for Harry or William. It was meant for Charles, upon what she predicted would be a moment of moral reckoning. She titled it If, as in, if you ever feel the world slipping away, if you ever find yourself choosing between truth and loyalty, if you forget what being a father means. It was a guide, a plea, and a warning. Insiders say the letter contained a list, not of enemies, but of unfinished business, things Charles would need to correct. And at the top of that list, tell him the truth. Don't let him carry it alone. Was she referring to Harry? Or William? Or both? No one is certain. But Charles was seen staring at a photo of young Harry that night. The same one Diana kept in her diary, folded neatly between pages about her dreams for his future. He reportedly said to himself, more than once, "I should have told him. He deserved more." And here's where it gets darker. Because the next morning, palace staff found the king in his chair, still awake, still holding the letter. He hadn't slept. He hadn't eaten. But he had made one phone call. To Princess and short, direct, for words. The time has come. Within 24 hours, the sealed envelope was dispatched, the one addressed to Sparrow, Harry's nickname. And thus began the sequence. The return, the shadows, the tension, the unraveling, all triggered by the letter under the pillow. Now here's a chilling detail. One of the Queen's former footmen, now retired, said Diana had an obsession with hiding notes in strange places. Drawers, books, behind paintings, and under pillows. Something about people only being vulnerable when they sleep, he said. That's when they'd be ready to hear the truth. So was this all part of a grand plan? Did Diana anticipate Charles's moral crisis decades in advance? Or had someone preserved the letter and waited until now to plant it? Either possibility is disturbing, but one thing is certain. It worked. Charles, reportedly, called for a private confessor that afternoon. Someone he hadn't spoken to in years. He admitted something. We don't know what. But what we do know is that after the meeting, he locked himself in his study for 4 hours. And when he emerged, he had in his hand Diana's compass, the one meant for Harry, engraved with her initials. He placed it in the courier box alongside a second letter. His own, addressed, "To my son, from your father." before it's too late. And that's when Anne knew this wasn't just a visit. This was a reconciliation, or a reckoning. Now here's where Meghan comes back into the picture. Because when she learned about the letter, after Harry had returned, she was livid. Sources say she demanded to know why she hadn't been told. Harry's reply? Because it wasn't for you. Those 5 words changed everything. Because in Meghan's mind, nothing involving Harry's legacy, his family, or his trauma should exclude her. To be left out meant she was being erased. And that was her deepest fear. She allegedly told her lawyer, "If they're using Diana to pull him back, I'll use Diana to pull the curtain down." Cryptic? Yes, but powerful. Because Meghan holds things too. Photos, letters, audio messages from Diana's former staff, many of whom confided in her early on, seeing her as the fresh start the monarchy needed. Now, she might just use those assets to flip the narrative, unless Harry stops her. But can he? Will he? Back in Clarence's house, Charles kept the original letter under lock and key. No scans. No digital backups. Just paper, ink, and the ghost of a woman who had warned him, decades ago, that the real enemy would be silence. And now, silence was no longer an option. Because William knew. And knew. Kate suspected. And Harry? He was reading the letter every night, over and over again, until he found the part that changed everything. A single line. "Ask your father what really happened the night I fled Paris." And why he stayed silent. Harry stared at that line for hours. Because if Diana was telling the truth, and if Charles had kept that truth buried, then this wasn't just a reunion. It was the start of a royal exorcism, and the first ghost to rise from the past wasn't Diana. It was the man in the shadows that Harry had always suspected played a role. A man who had disappeared from public life. A man whose name was scrubbed from royal records. And Harry had already booked a private meeting with him. One final chance for answers. One last hope for justice. But what that man revealed would tear open a truth so dark it could destroy the monarchy forever. 2 brothers. A tunnel hidden beneath the palace. No cameras. No staff. Just a single candle. And 20 years of betrayal waiting to explode. No security. No royal aides. No press. Only a single flame burning quietly in the window of the southern corridor. A silent message from one brother to another. It was their code. A relic of their childhood. When Diana was alive, she encouraged Harry and William to communicate without relying on the rigid formalities of palace life. So they came up with a system. If one brother lit a candle in the south-facing study window, it meant, "Come alone. Come now. No questions. No staff." They hadn't used the code since 2003. But tonight, it flickered again. Harry saw it, and he understood immediately. William wanted to meet. But it wouldn't happen in a room above ground. Not in the palace proper. Too many eyes. Too many microphones. No, this meeting would take place underground. Because beneath Buckingham Palace lies a secret known only to a few. The Churchill Tunnel, built during World War II to serve as an escape route for the royal family in the event of German invasion. The tunnel stretches from beneath the palace gardens to a now-sealed exit behind Westminster Abbey. It had been closed for decades. Until now. Harry slipped through the corridor entrance with muscle memory he didn't know he still had. No lights. No noise. Just stone walls, dust, and silence. He moved through the tunnel slowly, his footsteps echoing like ghosts whispering through the dark. And then, just ahead, he saw it. A figure standing at the junction. Hands in coat pockets. Shoulders stiff. Waiting. William. The air between them was thick. Heavier than silence. Denser than anger. For a moment, neither spoke. Then William said, simply, "You came." Harry nodded. "You lit the candle." No hug. No handshake. Just years of distance standing between them like a third person in the room. And then, slowly, William pulled something from his pocket. A small piece of paper, folded 3 times. He handed it to Harry. Harry opened it. Inside, a childhood drawing. Crayon. Faded. Sloppy. 2 stick figures, labeled me and you. Underneath. No matter what. Harry stared at it. His hand trembled. And then, finally, he laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it hurt. The ice cracked. Slowly, William spoke first. "I didn't know about the letter until a week ago." And told me. Harry was quiet. "Did she tell you why?" William hesitated. "She said father needed to say it. Before it was too late." Harry looked down. And do you believe that? William didn't answer right away. Instead, he stepped closer. I don't know what I believe anymore. Pause. But I know I didn't want you to find out from the press. The two sat down on an old bench carved into the stone wall. The same bench they'd once used as boys during hide-and-seek games when palace staff thought they were sleeping. Everything had changed, and nothing had. Then Harry said it. The one question that burned in his chest since the moment he read Diana's words. Do you think he was involved? William didn't look up. In what? The crash. Silence. Then William replied, barely audible. I think. He knew more than he ever admitted. Harry exhaled, like a weight was leaving his body. Because that's what Diana's letter had hinted at. That Charles hadn't orchestrated the crash, but that he had protected someone who played a role. And William? He believed it too. They sat in silence for several minutes. Then William pulled out a USB drive. Small. Plain. What's that? Harry asked. William handed it over. Mum's tapes. Harry's heart stopped. What? She recorded everything. Voice memos. Dictations. Some of it was used for the Martin Bashir interview. But not all. How did you get this? And gave it to me the day before you arrived. Said it was time. Harry clenched the drive in his fist. Does Meghan know? William shook his head. No. And she can't. Not yet. Harry swallowed hard. Because this was bigger than anything Netflix, Penguin, or Oprah ever got their hands on. It wasn't edited. It wasn't filtered. It was Diana, raw and unguarded, whispering from the past. And Harry now held the key. Then William said something unexpected. I'm scared, Harry. Harry blinked. You're scared? Yeah. Because once this is out, it doesn't just change how we see Dad. It changes everything. The firm. The legacy. Even Mom. Another pause. Then William looked at him directly. But I don't want to carry it alone. Harry stared at his brother. And for the first time in a very long time, he felt close to him. Like they were children again, hiding under blankets, waiting for the thunderstorm to pass. But the storm wasn't over. It was just beginning. Because what neither brother knew was that someone else was listening. Someone inside the tunnel. Not a staffer. Not a guard. A tracker. Planted days earlier by an unnamed party who had been monitoring palace frequencies for weeks. The moment Harry stepped foot inside that tunnel, someone knew, and they had already leaked part of the conversation. Not to the British press, but to an American journalist. And within hours, the headline would break. Private tunnel. Diana's tapes. The brothers reunite in secret. And Meghan? She'd read it before Harry even got back to the surface. And what she did next would turn the brothers against each other all over again. This time, for good. She said nothing at first. Then she called her legal team. And when Meghan Markle threatens legal war, it's never just about the law. It's about control. The headline dropped at 5:42 a.m. Los Angeles time. Private tunnel. Diana's tapes. The brothers reunite in secret. The article was vague. No sources. No direct quotes. But the implication was enough. Harry had met with William. Harry had access to Diana's unreleased recordings. And most damning of all, Meghan wasn't there. Meghan Markle was the last to know. Again. And that wasn't just a personal insult. It was a professional threat. Because her brand, her entire empire, was built on being in the room, being part of the narrative, controlling it. And now, a secret meeting in a palace tunnel had shifted the story back to the one place she couldn't reach, the monarchy. She didn't rage. She didn't cry. Not at first. Instead, she picked up the phone. And she called her lawyer. Sources close to Meghan say she spoke just 4 words. Let's prepare everything. Now. Not what are my options. Not can this be handled quietly. Everything. Because in Meghan's world, betrayal isn't just emotional. It's legal. Let's step back. Meghan's legal team isn't just any team. It's a hand-picked squad of aggressive, sharp-edged, media-savvy attorneys who've navigated everything from tabloid battles to international copyright cases. And what most people forget, Meghan and Harry's business isn't just about Netflix deals and book rights. It's about image ownership. Every appearance, every documentary, every recorded conversation, curated, controlled, copyrighted. So when a story leaks that Diana's tapes are in circulation, and Harry might be involved, and Meghan isn't, the lawyers see exposure. And Meghan sees vulnerability. Within 2 hours of the article dropping, 3 cease and desist drafts were prepared. One for the publication that broke the tunnel story, one for a suspected royal aide they believed had leaked the location, and one, shockingly, for Kensington Palace itself. Yes, Meghan's legal team prepared a warning for the monarchy.